Yo, YouTubers, we got 40,000 subscribers. We still want more. Let's get to 50,000 by the end of the week. That's not going to happen, but we'll be ambitious anyway. Hit the subscribe button. Let's talk week 3 right now. Well. Welcome to a fun recap show. I can already tell it's going to be fun. It hasn't even started yet. I know we're going to have fun because it was a really interesting and exciting day of football and fantasy football as well. Adam Azer, Heath Cummings, Dave Richard here on Fantasy Football Today. And if you're watching live on YouTube, hello, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. If you are listening to the podcast, hope you're having a wonderful night or a pleasant morning. We're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly for week 3 to start the show. Here we go. The good in week 3 was what? What comes to mind? The good.
The good was seeing some good from players who we hadn't seen good numbers from yet this year. James Robinson, for example, basically owned the Cardinals on a drive, had 66 yards on one drive with a touchdown. Clyde Edwards-Helaire caught a touchdown in the red zone. Remember how we were saying all along, well, he's not playing in the red zone and he's not getting targets. He's going to be a bum. Well, he did both on one play and it came out with a touchdown. He also ran for 100 yards. It was good to see some players who we were starting to get a little nervous about come through with a big game. Mark Andrews is another one. Chase Claypool is another one. There were guys that were good.
When do you give the Saquon Barkley a little respect here? I think he should be on this list.
All right.
We've already got him in, believe it or not, we've got him in winners and losers. I'm sure he's got a buy still.
No, I didn't want to put the Giant in here because I knew the Giants fan, who's secretly an Eagles fan, would go crazy. I didn't want to give it
backwards. I'm an Eagles fan who's secretly a Giants fan. Heath, we talked about the good. What was the bad in week 3?
The Jets.
No. I said the bad.
The ugly.
I mean, there was nothing more bad than the Jets scoring 0 points, and it's just disgusting. Everything about it. Nothing's changed.
I raised you the Bears.
No, that was gross too. There was just some really awful offense today.
Nobody's starting the Jets, you know.
Oh, I think lots of people started Corey Davis.
Sorry.
I don't think so.
Justin Fields was sacked 9 times and pressured on 55% of his dropbacks, according to NFL Next Gen stats.
Wow. Corey Davis started in 14% of leagues. All right, that was going to be my nominee for the ugly was the Bears. Anything else? What was the ugly today?
Jonnu Smith was really, really ugly. 1 out of 6 targets he caught. One of the other targets he threw to a defender, almost like a lateral, caught it in his hands and just handed it right to him. It reminded me of the Kalen Ballage play from a couple years ago. Jonnu Smith was really, really ugly.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's a little intro to Fantasy Week 3. Today on the show, we'll go through the big injury news. A.J. Brown obviously was a dud, left in the first quarter. Unfortunately, hamstring injury I shouldn't say he was a dud. He got hurt. Hopefully he's okay. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett both were shaken up. Lockett appears to have avoided serious injury, which is a big sigh of relief. It did not look like that was going to be the case. We may have gotten out of this week without a lot of serious injuries, and good news on McCaffrey, which we'll tell you about in a moment. Join our Facebook group. Search Fantasy Football Today on Facebook or click on the link in the description to chat with other fantasy fans. Ask, start, sit questions, talk through trade ideas, and much more. Do you have any overall takeaways? Dave, I thought you good note that you hit there with the underperforming players getting on the scoreboard and having good games. I'll give you guys some time to think, and I'll just start.
I mean, there's more. There are 3 quarterbacks that also belong on the list of guys who were bad that ended up being good, and we can feel good about starting them again. Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill did it in his own goofy Tannehill style. But Josh Allen did it in his style circa 2020, and it was really incredible. The Washington defense, dude, I thought that they would end up being one of the better units in football. They looked terrible all game long. Josh Allen looked like his old self. He looked comfortable. I think he said after the game that he felt really good. So exciting to see that. And Herbert had he had lost so many numbers because of penalties being called back and because of touchdowns. The touchdowns were probably that, but drops as well. More of that happened today. 2 more penalties today cost him a touchdown, cost Keenan Allen a 30-yard reception. So eventually he's going to have like one of those perfect days where he ends up with like 45 fantasy points. It'll be amazing. But he did good enough against Kansas City to show that he's absolutely worth the pick that you took him with and worth starting No questions asked for the most part. It depends on who else you have on your team moving forward.
I thought today was just another reminder that we should not use he's got to share too much as an argument against number 2 running backs, because we've got like 5 backs right now that are not sharing. Jonathan Taylor is sharing a lot more than we want him to. Nick Chubb is sharing a lot more than we want him to. I mean, it's just, there's so many committees and it's so frustrating. Josh Jacobs goes down and we're all excited about Kenyon Drake, and Peyton Barber runs for 111 yards and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens situation, oh my gosh.
Oh,
it's
no,
like,
don't.
It's not, sure. If you want to make an
I want
argument
to
against the
leave
guy being
a
a top 5
flaming
running
bag
back,
of dog poo on John Harbaugh's porch.
if you want to argue against a running back not having top 5 upside because it's in a committee, maybe that's true. I don't know. I think DeAndre Swift's probably going to be a top 5 running back for the season after this week, and he has to give up 45% of his touches.
And that's why I couldn't believe the start percentage for Alexander Mattison. It was only about 56% or something like that.
Well, do you remember the last time people got excited about starting Alexander Mattison?
But everybody forgets week 17. Week 17, he had a huge game. He had well over 100 yards. I think he scored 2 touchdowns. And he had 27 touches in this game. He was a total league winner, or week winner, I should say. Look, running back's tough. We're some pretty good running back performances today, but it's tough to find a workhorse, that's for sure. So if you're a Barkley manager, you got to be encouraged by that. At least, he's the workhorse. Although he did come up looking like he was injured at least 3 times in that game. It was really like, hold your breath with Saquon Barkley. My big takeaway is there's only one Travis Kelce. This is now 2 disappointing games in a row for Darren Waller, who's the second best receiving tight end in football. Hawkinson was horrible today. Kyle Pitts was horrible against what should have been a good matchup. Andrews back in the good graces, but he's had 2 disappointing games. Kittle's had one disappointing game, one game where he was fine, and he plays tonight. There's only one Travis Kelce. He's incredible. All right. The big news: Tyler Lockett hurt his knee, and DK Metcalf was shaken up in the 4th quarter, very late in that game. Unless I hope it's not a concussion or anything, obviously, but it looks like we've avoided serious injury there for Lockett and Metcalf.
Lockett played on the final drive too.
Oh, okay. I did not even see.
And
that.
he walked without a limp after the game. Like, reporters were talking to him. He seems fine.
All right. Good. A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, on the other hand, A.J. Brown hamstring injury in the 1st quarter. And then Julio, what happened with Julio Jones? They were limiting his work at the end. I don't know. It was weird. He did not play all that much down the stretch.
How many passes did they throw down the stretch?
Because
they were playing with the lead in the 4th quarter. I don't think Julio is probably going to do a lot of run blocking in that situation. I wonder if that had more to do with it.
Maybe. All right, Dave, see if you can find out there.
I got it. Tannehill threw 8 passes in the 4th quarter. Julio played, according to what I'm looking at, 0 snaps in the 4th quarter.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on it. James White left with an injury. It's a hip injury, and that one might be serious. We'll have to see. Rob Gronkowski, though, the X-rays were negative on his ribs. He was able to come back. Giants had some bad luck today. Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard go out in the 1st quarter, both of them with hamstring injuries, and maybe their best defensive player, Blake Martinez, he left on the opening drive as well. Quentin Nelson is where, we just talked about Jonathan Taylor. He's splitting too much. Well, now he's lost Quentin Nelson to a high ankle sprain, his all-pro offensive guard. Juju Smith-Schuster left with a hip injury in the 3rd quarter. The yards between Juju and Claypool were pretty even before the injury. Claypool tacked on a lot of fantasy points after the Juju injury.
Mm-hmm.
And good news, Jason Lockenfora reporting this morning, there's grade 1 hamstring strain, grade 2, grade 3. A source said it's like a grade 0.5 hamstring strain for Christian McCaffrey.
It's kindergarten.
Yeah, there you go. So it doesn't seem like he'll be out for all that long, and he's still not on IR. All right, overall, we've seen much worse weeks, so we're thankful for that. Let's do some buy or sell. Buy or sell. Kirk Cousins will be better than Russell Wilson rest of season.
It's a sell, but he's going to be pretty good. Vikings defense still hasn't been able to put it all together, and Cousins just is loving what he's got at receiver. You can tell.
Yeah, I want to change it because when I wrote that originally, I was expecting an absence for Lockett. Kirk Cousins, buy or sell, has entered the fantasy elite.
No,
You mean sell?
I'm gonna go ahead and say that I do not believe that one.
But he's got a chance to.
He's definitely. I don't. If he does, it will be in a way that next year we're saying, yeah, but he can't repeat that. Like, yes, any quarterback could have a 9% touchdown rate and average 9 yards per attempt over 16 games. We saw Aaron Rodgers do it last year. It happens occasionally, but it's not like Cousins is not, I don't think, going to do the things that are sustainable that would make him part of that elite tier. Does that make sense?
Well,
Yeah. So he has a 9% touchdown rate.
No, I just made that number up.
It's 6.7% through 3 games, 6.7% touchdown rate, which, as Heath will tell you, is still very high and tough to sustain. His yards per attempt is 7.7. He's completing almost 74% of his passes. I can tell you that that's very tough to sustain. And he's only been sacked 5 times, and that's without his offensive line being at full strength.
I might, if you had said Kirk Cousins would be better than Aaron Rodgers rest of the season, I might have believed that.
Yeah. Well,
better than Ryan Tannehill, I might have believed that.
Okay. But bottom line, he's 81% owned, rostered rather, and even in 10-team leagues, you got to have Kirk Cousins. This is going back to the last 8 games of last year too. He was sensational, and he's keeping it up. And Adam Thielen just always catches a touchdown. All right, buy or sell. This was actually a concerning game for Antonio Gibson. Gibson had 12 carries for 31 yards, but he had a 73-yard touchdown catch. Buy or sell. This was actually a concerning game for Antonio Gibson.
So
I'll buy it.
Ooh, all right. Yeah, debate. Fight.
Go ahead, Heath.
This Bills defense has been so good that had Antonio Gibson had a bad game against them, he'd pretty much have just been like most of the other running backs they've played, and most of the running backs I would expect they will play. The Bills score a ton of points and put you in a position where you have to throw a lot, and they're good defensively. So the fact that he had a bad game, I wouldn't have held against him. You got the bonus of the long touchdown catch.
The long touchdown catch is the cologne that's covering up the stink that is the Washington offense in general, with Taylor Heineke under center. And coming out of this game, he only has 6 plays of 10+ yards. That's rushing or receiving. He's not dominating playing time. He's not working on third downs. I don't believe, I can double check at him, but I don't think he played on a single third down.
But these things were true last week.
Yeah, he played on a few third downs last week.
He wasn't good this week, but we just kind of said, oh, he's fine. You know,
this week he had the same number of targets as McKissick.
High, I think there's an opportunity to sell high. Let me look at his schedule real quick.
Okay, no, I got his schedule now, and it's really
his schedule is actually kind of interesting.
It's bad for him, I think, because Atlanta
next week is
sure, but New Orleans, it appears, has a very good run defense somehow. Jury's still out, in my opinion, but so far they've been good. You talk about teams, if he gets in a bad game script against teams that score a lot of points, he's got Kansas City, Green Bay, then he's at Denver, they're tough, then a bye, then Tampa Bay. So, and the thing is, it's just annoying that with Antonio Gibson that we even have to talk about his schedule. That is not the way people drafted Antonio Gibson, to think that game script matters so much.
He played 58% of the snaps, no third downs on Sunday. McKissick, 46% of the snaps. Yes, there were some plays where they were both playing, and all of the third downs went, obviously, McKissick's way. That schedule is ugly coming up. And Brandon Scherf I think he stayed in the game, but at one point he ran into a wall and had to leave for a little bit. Something just flew into my eye. Holy cow. I would start laying the groundwork for a Gibson trade after next week.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Buy or sell. We are sitting Robert Woods until further notice.
Are you kidding me?
What? Why?
At least change the wording of the tweet when you copy and paste from Twitter into your notes. I send out the believe it or nots before the show that I'm going to write about the next morning so that we can talk about them on the show and we can have poll results during the show.
You didn't say that.
Literally just copied and pasted one of the tweets off of Twitter into the notes.
I did not see it. I had no idea. I'm sorry. What are people on Twitter saying?
Just 29 minutes ago, Robert Woods is a sit until further notice. The exact words of the tweet.
I said we are sitting Robert Woods until further notice.
So you did change the words a little bit. 60% said yes, 34% said they do not believe it. I mean, I think we do so many leagues that are PPR and 3 wide receivers that maybe jades me a little bit. In those leagues, no, I don't think Robert Woods is a sit. I don't think there's 36 wide receivers that you can feel good about starting over Robert Woods next week. So in those leagues, I'm still going to sit him. If it's a non-PPR league where you only start 2 wide receivers, he's absolutely a sit.
Dave?
As of now, the answer is yes. I'd like to do a little bit more research to see just what the heck's going on and what are teams doing. Are we looking at the teams trying to take away Robert Woods for 3 weeks? I mean, at some point, someone's going to say, we should probably cover number 10 for LA.
Yeah.
So I can't help but think that it's eventually going to turn around for Robert Woods and he's going to be fine for fantasy. This is a buy low opportunity, I think, because people are going to start saying, I can't handle this guy in my lineup. He's a sinkhole, and they'll give him up for someone halfway decent.
Would you rather have Marquise Brown or Robert Woods rest of season?
Woods.
I think I'm going to say Woods too. We do need to remember that the schedule is going to improve greatly for LA. I don't think he's going to go all year without a touchdown or without a 100-yard game or anything like that. They play Arizona next week. They're at Seattle after that.
This was the case, I mean, but this was part of that, you know?
Sure.
And they lost Jamel Dean in their secondary today, the Bucks. So, and Stafford had a huge game. But if I'm concerned about anything, guys, it's that Deshaun Jackson and Van Jefferson and Higbee, they're giving them something. You know, I mean, maybe they're not going to be consistent every week, but it's not a thin receiving core. It's not just Kupp and Woods by any means. It's pretty deep receiving core, I'd have to say.
He doesn't have more than 12 or 13 PPR points in a game yet this year. I know he scored in week 1,
and he had 9 targets.
Yeah. 12. He had 12 in week 1, 11 or 12. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so you said Woods over Brown. I'll give you one more. Would you rather have? Oh man, I offered Mike Williams for Robert Woods in one league last week. Thank goodness that didn't get accepted. Would you rather have Myles Gaskin or Robert Woods?
I think I'm ready to say Woods.
I'm probably going to say Woods as well.
All right, buy or sell. Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins.
How much more copying of Heath are you going to do?
Stephon Diggs, DeAndre
Before this
Hopkins.
podcast is over, you're going to be drinking beer.
All right, one more time. Diggs, Hopkins, and Tyreek Hill are not the elite fantasy wide receivers we thought they were. Buy or sell?
So,
buy on Hopkins.
Not on Diggs and Hill.
I'm not quite ready on Diggs yet. I'm definitely not ready on Hill yet. But I'm a little bit concerned with, like, this is what I was afraid Cliff Kingsbury was going to do when Hopkins first went there. So maybe that's why I'm more concerned about it after it happened for 3 weeks. But they really are behaving as if they think they've got 4 wide receivers and they can just throw it to whoever you're not covering.
Yeah. And Edmonds.
And yeah, they can throw it to Chase Edmonds at least until you get to the 10-yard line, and then it's James Conner time.
Hopkins or Kyler Murray time. Hopkins and Green are tied for the team lead in targets. AJ Green tied for the team lead in targets with Hopkins. It just feels weird to say that. Christian Kirk and Chase Edmonds are right behind them with 17 targets each.
How many do Hopkins? How many do
18.
Hopkins and Green have? 18.
So 2 with 18, 2 with 17, 1 with 15. Heath's right. This is one that you can buy. Is that Hopkins just isn't going to get that monster target share that made him amazing in 2020. And he's already beat up this year. I don't know if that means that we're going to relegate him to a number 2 fantasy receiver so fast. He might be a low end 1, but there's concern that he won't be able to be at what you drafted him to be.
How about Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, or DeAndre Hopkins? Would you move the Bucs guys over him?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes, I would, because I know this week I had Godwin 5, Evans 12, and then Hopkins 14. Now maybe not when Antonio. I guess I'm not sure I would actually. I take it back because Antonio Brown's coming back next week.
Mm-hmm. All right, last one here, guys.
Those guys. Godwin had 18 targets after week 2. Evans had 15 targets after week 2. So as many targets as Godwin had after week 2 is how many Hopkins has through 3 weeks. Now those guys, Godwin and Evans, are tied with 25 targets each. I mean, Brown will come back and there will be some dud games for them, but we're experiencing some dud games for Hopkins. I'll take the Bucs receivers. And I'm taking back what I said about Hopkins being a low end 1. He'll have some low end 1 weeks, but he's a wide receiver 2 now.
Wow. Okay. Last one. I want to do this one quickly here because we have so much show to get to. You tell me, I was going to say you never know when to start any of the following players, but I'm going to give you 5 players, and I want you to tell me if you feel like any of them are, none of them I think are going to be must starts just based on when they were drafted, but any of them are solid, dependable, reliable players rather than just unpredictable. I hope we picked the right week. DJ Chark has caught a touchdown in 2 of 3 games, had a dud in week 2, and 49 yards this week. DJ Chark, Kareem Hunt, Nyheim Hines, Jamal Williams, J.D. McKissick. Now, 4 of those 5, I would say, have had 2 good games. McKissick has had 1. Chark, Kareem Hunt, Nyheim Hines, Jamal Williams, J.D. McKissick. Do any of those 5 feel dependable to you?
Yes. I would start Kareem Hunt every week, rain or shine. He scores frequently, even with Nick Chubb on the field. This week was an example of that. He did score against Chicago. The yardage that comes with it is going to fluctuate wildly. There's going to be a lot of games where he gets you 40 yards total with a touchdown, and the occasional game where it's 40 yards without a touchdown. But as Heath alluded to at the beginning of the show, there are so many timeshares across the league. It's literally almost every single team at this point that when you've got a really good 1B running back that you can put in your lineup, and you know that they're going to get 10 touches minimum pretty much every week, and they have a good track record of scoring, those are pretty good reasons to start somebody, that running back.
And I think Jamal Williams is pretty much Kareem Hunt. He's not near as talented, but that Lions offensive line is good, and it's going to get better as the season goes on. And DeAndre Swift failed on a short yardage carry, and Jamal Williams succeeded on a short yardage carry. So I think that there's a better chance we'll see more short yardage carries for Jamal Williams. He's still getting a few catches, but for the most part, just to go back to the way you had originally phrased this, you're not going to know when to start these guys. I know exactly when to start these guys, and it has nothing to do with them. I start these guys when the guys that I want to start aren't available. These are the perfect guys to have as the first man up on your bench. And when something goes wrong with anyone else, you just slide them into your lineup. And no, you don't. They're not reliable. You don't know for sure, but they have a good opportunity to fill in a reasonable manner, like most of them did today.
All right, we're going to take a break in a little bit, and we're going to do some news and notes, early waiver wire, winners, losers, recap the games. But we did want to take some time to talk about Mike Tagliere. And what I've really noticed over the last couple of days is the fantasy community is very close-knit. And, it's built so much on social media. So we all just seem to, everybody's pretty much met most of the people in the industry and interacted with them. And I unfortunately didn't get to speak too much with Mike throughout the years. And for those of you who don't know, Mike passed away Friday night due to complications from COVID-19. He was Fantasy Pros podcaster, writer, and just amazing analyst. I encourage everyone to listen to the podcast they recorded, the Fantasy Pros podcast this morning, honoring him, the 3 guys on the show talking about their experiences with him. But it's been a really sad weekend. And I was just sick to my stomach yesterday. It just seems just awful and so unfair. And our hearts go out to his family, obviously. There is a GoFundMe campaign that if you'd like to contribute to, maybe we can put that up in our YouTube right now, but you can find it on Twitter. And anyway, I know you guys have had the chance to interact with Mike as well. And, I thought he was just such a really cool, down-to-earth, humble, great guy. And I always wanted to hang out with him. Never got the chance. I'm certainly going to miss him. But Dave, if you wanted to say anything about tags.
Mike reached out to me. I don't remember the year. It was in like 2015 or so. Sent a really nice email. I'm an investment banker, but I want to chase my dream. I'm realistic. I know it's going to take a while for me to get to where I want to go, but I want to be a fantasy football writer. And like you, I'm from Chicago. I love football. I love Chicago-style pizza. What advice can you give me? Can you help me? And that started what was a solid relationship with Mike. I'm not going to sit here and say that we were best buds. We met a couple of times at the Kings Classic in Canton, Ohio. Never awkward talking with him. He was very chill. He was very easy to talk to. We had many DM conversations on Twitter. That's probably where we talked the most. And I said it on HQ today, to know him was to love him. He was he came off as friendly and everything that he did, from his tweets to his primer column to everything else. And he was just like that in real life. It was great that, that's how most of us are, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's not like we're acting here and then we go home and we're jerks or whatever. But he believed in the power of positivity. He believed in chasing his dreams, and he did it. And he was a, successful fantasy football analyst. And I was kind of jealous of him because he had this amazing column where he wrote a huge chunk of content on every single player every single week. I have a hard time finding the time to write a modest sized paragraph on 30 players every single week. So it was incredible that he did it. And when I talked to him about it, the very first thing he said was, I've got a very patient and loving wife who's willing to let me have the time I need to do this. And she absolutely encouraged him to chase the dream. The other thing I'll tell you about Mike, and I kind of already said, is he was a very nice guy. And so if there's two lessons that you can take with you from Mike Tagliera's life, it's number one, be a dream hunter. Go after what it is that you want to do. I've already had people in my inbox today saying, I want to do what Mike did. Can you help me become a fantasy writer? I will get back to those people. And number two, be nice to people. Okay. We need more of that in the world. So go out there and if you're going to be mean to somebody, just bite your lip, bite your tongue. That's probably what Mike would have done and what he would tell you to do. And the world would be a better place if we all took a couple of pointers from Mike Tagliera. I'm going to miss the hell out of him.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the same when I go to Canton next year, and he's not going to be there. It's going to hang over the room. Everybody in this industry is very sad about losing him, but man, what a bunch of life lessons he taught us.
I'll just say, echoing everything you guys already said, I'll be short. I always felt a little bit of an understanding there. I mean, we were not close in any way, but we had a similar path into this industry, and we had similar personal paths in a lot of regards. And the way he talked about his wife, I fully understood. I know he had a child from a prior relationship, and he talked about dealing with that with her, and he'd done a lot of things in his career before he became a fantasy analyst. But the thing that impressed me the most, and you guys kind of talked about it, was the last, I guess it's 36 hours now on Twitter, and just the reaction of this community and the number of lives and people that he's touched, and the way that this community again has stepped up with the GoFundMe and made sure at least Tabby and the family don't have to worry about anything financially for a while. I think that's commendable. I want to congratulate the industry on that. And I'm just offer my condolences to his family, and it's just amazing what an impact he made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the people in the industry and all the people who play out there and follow tags, they're just so moved, and I'm so glad that they're contributing to the GoFundMe, and we're all in this together. So thanks for those words, guys. We definitely we'll always remember Mike Tagliera. We're going to take a break here on Fantasy Football Today. Come back and talk more fantasy. Welcome back, everybody. All right, just a couple of stats here. Derrick Henry has 12 catches in 3 games. His career high is 19. So PPR machine, Derrick Henry. And Calvin Ridley has gone 3 straight games with 51 to 63 yards. And he had a similar stretch last year, but he left one of those games hurt. So I would say this is worse than anything we saw last year. And they do not throw. They are the most conservative team. It is incredible to watch the Falcons. They were horrendous today and still came away with a win.
When you say conservative, you mean they ran the ball a lot, or they checked down a lot?
It's just nothing downfield.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I noticed that last week, especially against zone defenses. Matt Ryan is very happy to check it down. If it's, 1st and 10 and they're leaving the middle of the field open, he'll get you 5 yards. If it's 3rd and 9, he'll take the 5 yards and then they'll punt.
Yeah, they still don't have a 40-yard pass play in 3 games now. And that's, just not what we're used to seeing from – their longest play today was 28 yards. Oh, they had a 28er to Cordell Patterson. That was a short pass. Calvin Ridley, 20. Kyle Pitts, 25 on the last drive. So, I mean, it's just amazing to see. And I wasn't going to include him in that previous one with he's not the stud wide receiver, but that's because I thought, we'll spend time on it here. But, yeah, is Calvin Ridley worse than DeAndre Hopkins? Who would you rather have?
Hopkins.
I think I might side with Ridley because I think the target volume does have a room to be good. I mean, I'd rather have Devontae Adams, who just scored against the 49ers.
Don't.
But I think I'd look at Ridley first. I think Ridley needs to be examined a little bit and to see what's going on.
All right.
Yeah. One more on this. Is this weird stats discussion?
Sure.
If you looked at Kyler Murray's rushing yards,
I can't say I have. Not that much going into this week.
he had 19 rushing yards this week. He has 70 yards rushing in 3 games.
He's still playing so well.
Isn't that weird? I think he has maybe 4 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. And
He's only run the ball 17 times in 3 games.
He said he was going to run it less. I didn't believe him. Believe it or not, I said no.
Yeah, he is definitely running it less.
I was worried about it, and then Kingsbury said over training camp, yeah, we're going to use him as a runner still. I was like, all right, cool. Sounds like he'll run. At least he's giving us something on the ground.
Yeah. All right. Here's another stat. Zach Wilson has scored 3 combined fantasy points in his last 2 games. Now, early waiver wire guys, you want to just give me some names, fire away with some waiver wire names. I think the Titans are playing the Jets, so Titans DST.
Sure. And then if those receivers aren't healthy, you could certainly make the case for whoever's left in Tennessee's passing game. I guess that would include Nick Westbrook, maybe Chester. Nah, I can't say
It'd be Chester Rogers, Dave.
He had a catch for a touchdown, but that's it.
He might have more fantasy points this year than A.J. Brown.
Oh, no. Don't start with that.
Jeez.
Come on.
Emmanuel Sanders, maybe. Hunter Renfrow.
Is Emmanuel Sanders available?
He is rostered in 59% of leagues.
I'd say Emmanuel Sanders should be, and Renfrow for sure. Yeah, I put him in the winners, but Renfrow for sure.
All right. Those are some names to get you started there. And
we'll think of the guy that we should have said an hour and 5 minutes into the podcast.
All right. So then why don't we go to our winners and losers for Fantasy Week 3. Heath, your winners are Saquon Barkley, Hunter Renfrow, and Emmanuel Sanders.
I'm just glad that we've added 17 segments at the beginning of the show before we get to this, so that we've already talked about these guys and we just move on. Dave, who are your winners?
Well, no, we didn't talk enough. First of all, with Renfrow and Sanders, who do you prioritize?
I would think Sanders in non or half PPR, probably in full PPR as well. But I do think that both of them are deserving of looks as number 3 wide receivers, especially as we move into the buys. And Sanders might be a real problem for Diggs.
I think Sanders could end up being a real problem for Diggs too. I think Bryan Edwards could be a problem for Renfrow and Waller. The way that he was making big catches late in the game for the Raiders was really impressive. Yeah. They've got to give him some more looks. In deeper leagues, I'm going to try and get Bryan Edwards on my bench. I think that there's something there. For example, deep leagues, you might have picked up KJ Hamler. Hamler got hurt. He's going to be out for a while. You can replace him on your bench with Edwards and just see what happens. But this is a talented receiver who was great in college, had a lot of injuries, big guy, and Derek Carr is throwing the ball like a maniac right now.
Yeah. All right, but I want to come back to Saquon Barkley here. He was started in 91% of leagues, 16 carries, 52 yards, and a touchdown. Not a great average, but 6 catches for 43 yards. And what do you think about him right now? Is he one of those running backs that you covet? You know, is he?
Yes. Yeah. He played 84% of the snaps. He got over 20 touches. He almost got you 100 yards, and he scored on a short yardage carry.
Yeah, and no Shepard, no Slayton. Maybe that contributed to the 6 catches. And they could be out. We don't know how much time they're going to miss. All right. I don't know how much else needs to be said there. Would you rather have Mixon? Is that a couple of kind of disappointing games or Barkley?
Saquon.
I would still take Mixon.
All right. I can tell you, I really thought Barkley looked terrific, explosive, powerful. I know the rush average isn't going to show that, but you guys will watch during the week and you let me know what you think. Dave, your winners, Ryan Tannehill. I got to have that wrong. That must be 46% started. made that his roster percentage. So I think started in just 46% of leagues, and he had 26 fantasy points against the Colts, and that was with his receivers beat up. James Robinson, who you mentioned, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who you mentioned. Now with the running backs, with Robinson and Edwards-Helaire, is this the start of good things to come, or is this a 1 week celebration, and maybe we should look to see what we can get for Robinson and Clyde?
I wouldn't mind if you went to see what you could get for Robinson and Clyde. I do think that Robinson's rebound kind of proves to the coaching staff in Jacksonville that this is a guy you need to have on the field. He was certainly involved late in the game, in the passing game. I think that he can have some good games moving forward. So I wouldn't be in a rush to get rid of Robinson. I think Jacksonville would be wise to keep leaning on him. And so that's hopefully what we'll see. I know that Carlos Hyde's still taking some work away from him. I don't have the snap counts available right in front of me.
I mean,
a minute I can get there.
Robinson, though, had 22 touches. Robinson had 15 carries, 88 yards, a touchdown, and 7 catches for 56 yards. Great game.
Yeah, so the downside to it is that he played 59% of the snaps. He didn't dominate in the red zone. He had the majority in the red zone, 56% of the red zone snaps, 42% of snaps on 3rd and 4th downs. So he's involved, and he's got room to grow a little bit more. And Jacksonville looks like a team that can be competitive to a point in games. And then when they're not competitive, Robinson can still play. So I'm okay with James Robinson as a number 2 fantasy running back. Edwards-Helaire still makes me nervous. I think that this could be like a fooled you game, because as great as it was that he caught a touchdown in the red zone, he didn't play much in the red zone. He only played 62% of the snaps in the entire game. Chiefs only had 8 plays in the red zone. So the fact that he had 1 red zone carry and 1 red zone catch, that's 2 of the 8 plays. Maybe you'll look at that as a positive.
And who was in at the 1 yard line, Dave? Who was in at the 1 yard line?
It was Williams.
It was Williams.
And then their next 3 games are at Philadelphia, which as of this recording right now, we still think is a good run defense. Buffalo, which I still think is a good run defense, even though Washington had the catch and run with Gibson. And then they're at Washington 3 games from now, which probably is not a great defense. So maybe he can come through in 1 or 2 of those games. I know people are going to like the workload there. If there is a sell high opportunity to a running back desperate team where you can get a really good receiver, or you work up something where you get Kelsey on your team, just throwing it out there, I would do it. I think that there could be some bad games ahead for Edwards-Helaire.
All right, let's go to the losers here. We'll go to Heath's losers first. Tyson Williams, what on earth? 5 carries for 22 yards. He scores 2 damn fantasy points, doesn't have a catch at Detroit. Rondale Moore, what on earth? Now, he nearly had a rushing touchdown, but he still only had 2 targets and 1 yard. And Devin Singletary, it was a great day for Zach Moss. Zach Moss had 13 carries. Singletary had 11. Moss was much better than him on the ground, 60 yards to 26 for Singletary. And Moss had 3 catches, 31 yards, and a receiving touchdown. It really looked like Singletary was kind of staking a claim a little bit there, but that totally went away. Where do you want to start? Tyson, Rondale, Devin Singletary?
I think there's a couple lessons for each one. For Singletary, it's just that he does not have the grip on the job that we hoped that he did, and we're going to have to wait until the next time that Zach Moss stubs a pinky, and then we get to see Singletary again, because it looks like Zach Moss, I mean, it was a pretty close to a split, but when it's a split, you just don't want to start either one of these guys. I know Moss had a good game in this one, but for the most part, if they're both getting 13 carries and a catch or 2, it's just like, I don't really want to. So I think Singletary really just goes back to a bench position, but I still want to hold him. I'm not really wanting to sit him. For Rondale Moore, this is the danger, first off, when you use per route run data, targets per route run, yards per route run, and then you got a guy that's not running all the routes. And that's what Rondale Moore has been so far. He's been kind of a gadget player, and they were in a weird situation in this game in Jacksonville where they were actually playing from behind for a while, but the game wasn't in doubt late. And I just don't think he played near as much as we were expecting him to.
Yeah, and then Tyson Williams.
Again,
Weird.
We talked about this 2 weeks ago, and it didn't really manifest itself last week. But I think for the most part, coaches would rather go with the plotter who's not going to make mistakes than the guy that looks a little bit flashier but doesn't seem to know what he's doing. And Tyson Williams has made a lot of mistakes, and it's not as if he had any great pedigree. He was a 5-year college player who was a backup almost an entire career and wasn't drafted and didn't play last year.
I know, but I think what's confusing to me, well, not confusing, but what's concerning is when you look at the running back carries. I don't know if you have any numbers on this, but they're just so. Usually it's like Dobbins 15. We were expecting Dobbins 15, Edwards 12, something like that. It was Latavius 7, Tyson 5. They just don't, and Devontae Freeman 3. They just don't run the ball as much. They're throwing more. Toward the end of last season, last like 6 games for Lamar Jackson, he was throwing 20, 21 times a game. He's probably close to 30 right now.
They told us all summer they wanted to do this.
Yeah. You don't believe until you see it. And they started out last year and then they were like, screw it. Let's just go back to not throwing the ball at all. But maybe they just don't have the running game. They don't believe in it. They're going to be more of a passing team than we are used
I think it's quite obvious they don't currently they don't believe in Tyson Williams. Now I don't want to say that's a permanent thing because I do still think he has more athleticism than every other running back on the roster put together.
Yeah.
But they do not trust him right now, obviously, and we can't.
All right. So should you drop? Okay, go ahead.
Tyson played 51% of the snaps, including 43% of the red zone snaps. Unfortunately, he had the same percentage of red zone snaps as Latavius Murray. Murray played 33% of the snaps. Freeman played 14% of the snaps. And all three of them basically were even on 3rd and 4th downs. I think Tyson had one more snap on 3rd and 4th than the other two guys each had. So I would imagine that at some point this week, Heath's going to watch the film on Tyson Williams. He'll make a note of the mistakes that he made. If he managed to play a game without any mistakes, maybe that buys him a little bit more time. At the very least, we know that he played half the snaps for Baltimore. But the Ravens came out in this game trying to throw. They wanted Lamar to throw. Lamar should have had a better game. He had 4 drops from his receivers. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But I still think there's hope for Tyson, but it's long-term. Short-term, I don't know how you can feel good about starting him.
Okay, for those of you who are not aware, Marquise Brown could have been wide receiver 1 this week.
Yep.
He dropped 3 big touchdowns. 2 of them were on the same drive. So obviously he couldn't have had all 3 of them. But he could have had a massive game. And he let a lot of people down, unfortunately. And he was really upset. You could see, and John Harbaugh didn't, was doing his best to kind of console him. But after all those drops, I don't think he had a catch in the second half. So it was a tough day for Marquise Brown. I know I was really high on him and unfortunately just dropped the ball.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a couple
Denver in week 4, by the way.
Yeah. I'm going to give a couple of bonus losers. Bonus losers for the week. Javonte Williams. This guy could have had 3 touchdowns. He had a lot of goal line work. Couldn't get in once. He had 1 touchdown. Fumbled at the goal line. And hasn't shown that he's better than Melvin Gordon. So I don't know that Melvin Gordon's going anywhere. And Darrell Henderson. I don't think Darrell Henderson can afford a split. He doesn't do enough. He needs to get a lot of touches and score touchdowns. And Sony Michel, did he blow the roof off of it? No. But against the Bucs, he had a pretty decent showing. Maybe he's a factor. Maybe it's, a 70-30 split, but it had been basically a 99 to 1% split. So I thought,
I don't know how you can say that Michel had a good showing, like against Tampa Bay, I guess.
Watch it. I mean, he was pretty good in the 4th quarter. He was reliable. He had a few catches. I think he was better than the numbers. I don't think that he did so badly where you just forget about him and go right back to Henderson as the every touch back, basically.
Well, the people who decide that aren't going to tell us what they're doing, but they have tended to prefer using one guy the majority of the time when they've got someone that they're comfortable with. I think they were getting comfortable with Henderson before he got hurt. It's a matter of whether or not they're going to get comfortable with him again once he heals up and he's back on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Could take a month or a month and a half before we see it again.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be good. That would make him a loser.
It would make him a loser. I got some losers for you.
Well, we got to get into the games here and the top 5.
All right, fine.
You already gave your losers, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't. I'm so sorry. Well,
I'm trying to transition and help you out here.
All right, my bad.
You know what? We'll talk about the losers when we go through the games.
Okay. Dave's losers, we'll get back to them. Jonathan Taylor, Allen Robinson, and Kyle Pitts. And we do have a Twitter poll. What was the most special teams play of the day? Was it Jamal Agnew's 109-yard kick 6, which is tied for the longest play in NFL history, or was it Justin Tucker's 66-yard game-winning field goal, which is the longest field goal in NFL history? What are the results? Oh, Tucker.
It's history.
They both were.
Well, one tied history, and the other one was Justin Tucker stands alone now.
Yeah.
On the mountain of NFL kickers.
Yeah. Well, I
actually thought it was short because
game.
The angle that they show you on TV, you see it bounce, and it looked like it bounced in the end zone. So I watched it live, and I went, "Oh man, that looks like he just fell short." And then you see the ball like kick back up in the air again, and then the referees are putting their hands up. I was like, "Damn, I guess it went through." New record, pretty cool.
I assume you've got a read to do or something.
No, why?
Like somebody's sponsoring and asking us to talk about kickers and field goal kick returns.
Yeah, a shoe company. Yeah, so 76% of the vote for Justin Tucker. I would have voted for Agnew because Tucker should have had to kick a 71-yard field goal because the Lions got screwed. It was delay of game. Arizona, at least it was on TV. Arizona 31, Jacksonville 19. We go to the games. It was not a good day for Kyler Murray. Only 17 fantasy points, but he threw for 316 yards. I doubt we're worried. James Conner had 2 rushing touchdowns. Chase Edmonds, he's never going to score. It's just not going to happen.
They gave him a chance.
He did.
Very earlier in the game, he had a carry from the 2-yard line. He got stopped right at the goal line. Very next play, Kyler Murray, boot, run, touchdown. No one on the Jaguars had a clue.
Yeah, but Connor came in. All right, sorry, Heath. What's your believe it or not for Arizona Jacksonville?
Believe it or not, you should drop Rondale Moore for AJ Green.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to trust AJ Green.
That's a low upside play.
Yeah.
Green had 112 yards.
I will just say that I think, and I fell into this last week too, and maybe after next week I'll feel different. Maybe I'm just going to flip-flop all over the place. I don't think Rondale Moore is an high upside play. He's not a full-time player.
Not yet, but that's what happens with rookie wide receivers. They gain playing time. They gain production.
I don't think they are using him in any of the types of roles. Like we were talking about this when we were questioning whether DeAndre Hopkins was going to be out this week. I'm not sure DeAndre Hopkins being out would have a major impact on Rondale Moore.
Maybe we should talk about Christian Kirk, by the way.
Well, I wonder if Kirk can keep putting up good games when if Hopkins does get a turn to start getting more targets.
So you guys would go Rondale, then Kirk, then AJ Green.
I would go Green last. It would be tough between Rondale and Kirk.
I'm not sure. I feel like rostering Rondale is just like a long-term high upside type play. I've never really believed that Christian Kirk can be a reliable starter from week to week. And I don't know if I can trust AJ Green. I feel like AJ Green is a prototypical receiver who will show us a couple of good games. And then when we start him and we're excited, he lets us down.
Like Rondale Moore just did.
I also wasn't ready to start Rondale Moore as anything more than a low-end flex this week.
Probably shouldn't start these
guys. The guy that let us down was Hopkins.
Yeah. All right. You probably shouldn't regularly start another receiver. It's going to be kind of a mess. Is it time to just give up on Trevor Lawrence? He scored 25 in week 1, 8 in week 2, and 10 in week 3 in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues.
Yeah, you could drop him. Come back to him as a bye week guy, or maybe when he starts to put things together, when that offensive line does a better job of protecting him, when the play calling gets a little bit better, you can come back to him.
We got way too many Laviska Shenault questions this morning. Way too many. I don't know why people are considering starting him at this point. And he's 69% rostered, and that's a guy who might be dropped in some leagues.
Connor had 2 short yardage goal line touchdowns. He played 73% of the red zone snaps. So it's basically, turning out that he is the new Kenyon Drake in Arizona. 3 fourth quarter carries came with less than 7 minutes. So Edmonds is still the main guy. He's still going to catch more passes, but anytime Carolina, the Cardinals have a good matchup, Connor's worth starting as the non-PPR flex because he could score.
All right. Cincinnati 24, Pittsburgh 10. Heath?
Oh, man, this is so gross. Believe it or not, Najee Harris is going to be a major factor in the passing game moving forward.
You've got to believe it.
I don't know about major. I don't think
it'll be like this.
He only had 19 targets today, Heath. Can he
And
get
he only played
20+?
95% of the snaps.
Well, look, Deontay Johnson was obviously out, and then Juju got hurt in the third quarter, I think. So keep that in mind. But
They didn't. I mean, it kind of went in a way. They didn't really throw to him week 1. They threw to him a little bit week 2, and then all the wide receivers got hurt in week 3, and they threw to him. He was their number 1 option.
Ben Roethlisberger right now might be one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. I'm sorry. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, you got the rookies struggling, but he's just off. You should have read. I hope everybody got a chance to read what Jason LaCanfora wrote this morning. I mean, the Steelers organization is getting very worried about Ben Roethlisberger, and now his solution is just to do the same crap as last year and get the ball out of his hand in a millisecond. So it's going to help Najee, sure. It's a hard game to take a lot away from, guys, because you had 2 star receivers out, and that obviously influences the targets. And then you had Juju out as well. But one thing, look at Joe Burrow's pass attempts in 3 games, 27, 30, and 22.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're just trying to run the ball. They had the ball for less than 25 minutes today, but still, Mixon is getting so many carries, 29, 20, and 18 carries in 3 games. And I wonder, how do you feel about Jamar Chase, right? He's not getting a ton of targets. His touchdown rate must be through the roof. He's got 4 touchdowns on 16 targets.
Yeah, I think Chase is a high-end number 3 wide receiver most weeks. And I'm still not sure when they're both healthy who's going to be better, him or T. Higgins. But if you're in a league where you start 3 wide receivers, then that makes it pretty easy. You're starting Chase every week.
Burrow's got a 9.3 touchdown rate right now.
So with Chase, if you were a veteran, you could look at him and say, all right, look, he can't keep this up. He's a sell high. With the risk, I think, is these are the first 3 games of his career, and he has scored 4 touchdowns. And you saw the way he accelerated into that long touchdown at the end. I mean, this guy has uncommon skill. So if he's just getting the targets that he's getting now and nothing changes and Burrow's throwing this infrequently, then yeah, you probably want to sell him. But we don't want to give up on. I don't want to sell him, I guess is what I'm saying. I could see it going down, going south a little bit here, but there's just too much potential. This guy has 4 touchdowns in his first 3 games. He was the 5th pick in the draft. I think I'm just going to ride it out and see what happens.
Same.
All right. I endorse this message. Atlanta 17, Giants 14.
Believe it or not, the Giants are going 0-17.
No, they'll win 3 or 4 games, have the 4th pick, and screw it up. They don't just lose. They're the most heartbreaking games.
Yeah. They make some pretty bad decisions.
I just don't know why at this point it would break your heart. You should be cheering for them to lose.
No. Heath, I'm so sick of it. You don't understand. When your team loses every year, you get sick of that crap. And there's
but they're not even good enough at losing. They got to win 6 games every year. One thing, this is actually relevant for fantasy. Believe it or not, Colin Johnson might be a waiver wire pickup. He had there was some people that liked him coming out. I was surprised that Jacksonville cut bait on him. And if there's no Sterling Shepard or Darius Slayton, he might just be their number 2 wide receiver.
Maybe.
There was talk before the game that Kadarius Toney would start to get more work. He had 3 targets and 2 catches. So I don't think that that's happening. Colin Johnson, 7 targets, 5 catches, 51 yards. Very, very tall and very, very lean individual. So there's certainly something there that might be of interest in deeper leagues. I don't know if you want to necessarily everybody was so excited to go with Daniel Jones, and the matchup was so great, and he didn't really capitalize on it. Didn't have a lot of touchdowns.
No, he didn't have any. He actually played pretty well. I'm not going to lie to you. He played pretty well. It was encouraging stuff. He made some really good throws, but he doesn't throw touchdowns ever.
Right. So I don't know how much of a hurry I'll be in to pick up a receiver on the other end of the quarterback who doesn't throw many touchdowns.
Dave, what do you think? Okay, what do you think about Kyle Pitts? Let's go through his first 3 games. 4 catches, 31 yards in week 1. 5 catches, 73 yards in week 2. And 2 catches for 35 yards on only 3 targets in week 3. And Matt Ryan threw 36 times. And a lot to Cordell Patterson, a lot to Calvin Ridley, 3 times to Kyle Pitts. What do you think right now?
Cordell Patterson is ruining everything. I didn't watch enough of this game to speak on Kyle Pitts. I thought in week 1 he was moving kind of slowly. I ran it past Pete Prisco. He said that he was thinking too much, and it looked like he moved a little bit better in week 2. I don't know why they didn't target him much more in week 3. It's something that I need to go back and watch.
I mean,
But
he's
I don't know if you can feel confident starting him as your tight end anymore. You might need to start looking at who's available on the waiver wire.
because there's a lot of guys in the waiver wire. Like that's
No,
the
there's
thing.
not, but there
You're
might be guys
so
that can actually score
committed at this
touchdowns.
point. You've just got to stick it out, because the week that you bench him, I'll guarantee it, Kyle Pitts will be the guy that scores the touchdown. You invested a 4th or 5th round pick on this guy. I hope the talent works out. There's no savior on the waiver wire. You're going to go add Austin Hooper, who just scored a touchdown. He's going to get 2 targets next week for 17 yards.
No, but I'm going to tell you this, though.
He plays Minnesota. You might not.
I'm going to tell you this. Hold on. Last week, after the bad week 1, Pitts was only started in 71% of leagues. So that tells me that a lot of people either added someone after the bad week 1 or drafted 2 tight ends. They don't always think like us. Hey, you drafted a top 5 or 6 tight end. Don't even think about drafting.
No, we recommended that actually.
Well, fine. Okay. But most, I think a lot of people who would take Pitts wouldn't take 2 tight ends, but they did bench him, and he came back with 73 yards and 5 catches. So
do you know what his rostership was this week?
His start percentage was 83%.
Right. So it went right back up, and he let us down. He's got Washington next week and then the Jets in week 5. So if you're pot committed like Heath, here's an idea. You stay pot committed. Your plan is, okay, week 4 and week 5, I'm starting. And week 6 he's on bye. You can't use him anyway. Maybe over the next 3 weeks, your goal is to sift your way through the waiver wire and see what you can find at tight end.
Speaking of waiver wire, I mean, Cordero Patterson is 67% rostered. He might be available. Which running back do you like better going forward? And actually, believe it or not, Mike Davis has more catches than Patterson this year. That was not a believe it or not segment. That is actually true. He has 1 more.
And they both have more catches than Kyle Pitts.
Right.
Who do you like better?
Because Matt Ryan's checking it down every chance he gets.
Favorite Falcons running back? Go ahead.
Davis.
I still want to say Davis, but they keep getting closer and closer in snap percentage each week. Davis was at 59%. Patterson was at 42%. 2/3 of the red zone snaps went to Davis. 1/3 went to Patterson. That's a shift from last week when Patterson saw more in the red zone. Again, I didn't really watch enough of this game. I don't want to say anything that I might change around, but by Tuesday, I'll have a pretty good idea on how I feel about Patterson.
All right. And Kenny Golladay, buy low or heck no?
I think it's a heck no.
Buy low.
Buy low.
It's a heck no. We just got done talking about how Colin Johnson was a great waiver ad because Daniel Jones doesn't throw a lot of touchdowns. Now we've got Kenny Golladay, who's not playing at 100%. He's going to be on the injury report all season. I don't think you're ever going to feel great to start Kenny Golladay.
Baltimore 19, Detroit 7. Heath?
Believe it or not, Tyson Williams is droppable.
No.
Don't dismiss it so fast. Who we're talking?
Sorry. No. Okay.
Brandon Ayuk is still in the league.
It just, you're not going to drop him, but nobody's going to drop him, I don't think.
I mean, he's definitely droppable in a 10-team league.
No.
I don't think so.
His upside is maybe you get 13 carries a week.
Yeah,
right
but
now, and he's not. He was the 3rd Baltimore running back to receive a touch in this game.
he had 94 total yards in week 1.
They went Murray, Freeman,
he had 94 total and 93 total yards in week 2. Nobody's
you ever watch an episode of The Walking Dead?
Yeah.
What happens to the slow people on The Walking Dead?
They walk.
They get eaten by zombies and they die. And he's the fastest of the guys that are in that backfield in Baltimore. I imagine that he will eventually outrun Murray and Freeman.
Dave, I think his backfield mates might be the zombies. But Marquise Brown, look, all right, I think we talked about him, but I hope they go back to him after this game because if he had that big game, we'd be talking about him as one of the true breakouts this year.
If they don't go back to him, what's their offense going to be?
Rashad Bateman can be back next week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now that's somebody to add and stash off the waiver wire.
All right, we talked about DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams earlier today. Any concerns about TJ Hawkinson? Two catches, 10 yards on 2 targets.
He's a tight end.
He is a tight end, yeah.
Yeah, but we expect more from Hawkinson than 2 targets.
Dear goodness gracious, Cleveland 26, Chicago 6. Chicago gained 47 net yards. Cleveland gained 418.
This was one that was actually, and you almost stole it with the Trevor Lawrence thing, but believe it or not, Justin Fields is droppable in a 1 quarterback league.
I believe it.
Yeah,
My biggest gripe with Justin Fields coming out of Ohio State is that when he gets rattled by the pass rush, it takes him a while to like cool back down. And every time he plays, he's going to get rattled by the pass rush because that offensive line in Chicago is so brutal. I don't know how they fix that. They tried to fix it in this game by going no huddle. That didn't work. They tried to buy him time by using extra tight ends. Occasionally it worked, and he'd throw off target. They sailed passes over people's heads. He threw lawn darts. I think one pass hit a lineman in the butt cheek. I am really discouraged by what I've seen from Justin Fields, especially since in the preseason, it looked like he knew what he was doing. He was poised. He was confident. Maybe it was because the offensive line was blocking better then. Maybe it was because he wasn't taking on tough defenses in the preseason.
I understand why people succeed in the preseason at this point.
Sure.
Against backups, and he made a lot of mistakes in the preseason.
We just acted like there was no chance we could drop Tyson Williams. The only
different positions. Heath, come on,
running back Heath.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's put it this way. The first round pick after one game. This kid's an undrafted free agent who's 25 years old.
They said Dalton's coming back. They said Dalton's going to be the quarterback when he's healthy, and I actually believe them now.
I believe it.
They get the
Let
Lions
him get killed.
Detroit next week. All right. So what do you think? What do you think? You keep him for Detroit next week? Because
I would like to keep him for Detroit next week.
Keith, if you saw Tyson Williams and Justin Fields on your waiver wire, who are you going to make a waiver claim for first?
Oh, it's probably Tyson Williams.
Oh, it's definitely Tyson Williams. Get out of here.
Thank you.
But I do not have near the confidence that you guys do that Tyson Williams is ever going to be a top 20 running back in fantasy again, like for the rest of his life.
Dave, talk to me about Allen Robinson and David Montgomery for that matter. Are these just huge busts this year?
I thought David Montgomery was going to get off to a huge game. He had 16 rush yards on his very first carry, and then he had 18 rush yards on his remaining 9 carries. So, yuck. And Allen Robinson, there's he dropped a touchdown. Otherwise, he would have had a better game with him this week. Just Fields was awful. The offensive line was awful. It's going to sabotage the numbers for Robinson and Mooney. If you've got Robinson or Mooney, you need to hope that they come through with a good game in week 4, and you can trade them for whatever you can get. That's in the case of Robinson. And Mooney, if Mooney doesn't come through with a good game in week 4, I think you're cutting him.
So are you more worried about these guys than you are Jacksonville? Because we've seen 3 games of Trevor Lawrence being awful.
Yeah, but the worst game in PPR with Marvin Jones there is 12, and Chark has scored in 2 of 3 games. And Visca is still going to get some good volume in the passing game. I mean, as bad as the Jacksonville offensive line is, the Bears offensive line is worse. Do the Bears have the worst?
The Bears were definitely worse today than Jacksonville has been. I'm just saying, I am more convinced that Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence are going to be bad than I am Justin Fields and the Bears, because I've only seen it in 1 game from Fields.
Right, but we know that Fields isn't going to be the starter the rest of the way.
I don't know that. I think if he goes and lights up Detroit and they win, he might be.
Yeah, maybe. But then 2 weeks later, if he has a couple of bad games, then they'll just go back to Dalton. And we're talking about dropping Trevor Lawrence. That's why I'm okay with dropping Fields.
I think it might be better for the Jacksonville guys if they had Andy Dalton.
The Jacksonville
Lawrence over
Lawrence
Trevor
has been awful.
He has been awful.
But he's
he's had some spurts of good.
Not good.
Neither is Trevor Lawrence.
But Andy Dalton actually played pretty well, I think, in week 2 before he got hurt. But yeah, I don't know. Look, I don't have any Allen Robinson, and I'm thrilled about it. But you guys probably do. So starter sit. Yeah, I have him. Starter sit Robinson against Detroit next week.
Heard him.
I might put him in my top 24. He might make the top 24.
Who would you rather have rest of the season, Odell Beckham or Allen Robinson?
Robinson.
Wow. The fact that I'm even hesitating makes me want to kind of say Odell.
Beckham had 5 catches for 77 yards. He had
9 targets, and he looked good.
Yeah, he did. And he had a carry for 10 yards, and he was only started in 23% of leagues. And he's at Minnesota next week. He'll have 2 more games at least without Jarvis Landry. Beckham or Brandon Cooks rest of season?
Cooks.
All right, Cooks or Robinson?
Cooks.
I'm probably still Robinson.
Tennessee 25, Indianapolis 16.
I'm going to get sick in this segment.
Believe it or not, Jonathan Taylor has a Nyheim Hines problem.
Believe it. That might be the easiest believe it or not that we've ever had.
I don't know. Because I don't think that Taylor can't be great even with Nyheim Hines being involved. That's the thing, right? Because they don't really have anyone else. It's right now it's Taylor, Hines, and Pittman. So I don't see why both running backs can't be.
I think the
very
problem
successful.
is that Nyheim Hines is going to play more in these types of games. And the way this offense and defense has looked so far, they're going to be in more of these types of games than we had forecast. The offensive line doesn't look as good as we thought it was. The defense doesn't look near as good as we thought it was. And so I kind of went into the year thinking the Colts were a team that would be playing ahead most of the time. Jonathan Taylor was going to be getting 18 carries a game. And the catches, maybe he'd catch 2 or 3 passes too. That'd be kind of gravy. But he was such a good runner. The line was so good. The game script would be so good that he was going to be good even if Hines was the pass catching back. If Hines is the pass catching back and they're playing from behind half the time, that's a major problem, I think, for Jonathan Taylor.
Quentin Nelson got hurt in the game. He was carted from the sideline to the locker room. It's an ankle sprain for him, so he's probably going to be out for a while. Nyheim Hines had 54% of the snaps. Jonathan Taylor had 49% of the snaps. That might make you sick. This will do the job. 78% of the red zone snaps for Indianapolis in week 3 went to Nyheim Hines. He had 4 snaps on goal to go. 33% of the red zone snaps, 2 goal to go snaps for Jonathan.
I'd love to know the circumstances of that, because you're not telling me that he's their goal line back. He's definitely not. It's probably.
But here's a game where they're in the red zone, and this is an important area of the field. Whether it's the first quarter or the fourth quarter,
Dave, what had happened in the red zone the prior 2 weeks with Jonathan Taylor?
Exactly.
There's no way he lost his job to Nyheim Hines in the red zone. I refuse to believe that.
I don't think
in the green zone,
they are going to line up and obviously run the ball. Then I'm not saying necessarily even on the 1 yard line, but I do wonder if their lack of success being able to punch the ball in, running the ball in obvious running situations, has caused them to think, you know what, maybe we shouldn't be so obvious. Maybe if we put in our pass catching back, they might think we're going to throw, and then we can hand it to him, and he can go run for a touchdown.
Operates like that. They get down to the goal line, they put in their best running back. That's Jonathan Taylor.
I didn't say goal line. There's a big difference between red zone and goal line.
I mean,
Well, this was from the 8 when Nyheim Hines scored on the rushing touchdown today.
Okay, well, what was the situation?
They were
for Hines' touchdown.
Yeah.
It was the fourth quarter. It was 22-13 Tennessee.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. They were probably in the hurry up.
He might have been.
Listen, he had 15 carries and 17 carries in his first 2 games, Jonathan Taylor. So
sure.
Now he had 10. They had the ball for 25 minutes. It was a horrible game. They were behind most of the game. It sucked. All right, would you rather? But I don't.
They've been behind for most of the season.
He was not losing his job near the goal line.
No one said anything about goal line but you.
Well, but that's the most important. Like, Nyheim Hines isn't going to rush for 8 yards most of the time on first and goal from the 8. Anyway.
I don't think it was first and goal from the 8.
Whatever. From the 8, goal to go. Barkley or Taylor this season?
Barkley.
I think I'd still take Taylor.
Real quick here. Should Derrick Henry be the number 1 overall player in PPR, given his role in the passing game and McCaffrey's injury and Cook's injury?
Yes.
All right. Chargers 30, Chiefs 24. Guys, we got to giddy up here, or we're going to be on the air for 2 hours. Chargers 30, Chiefs 24.
Believe it or not, Mike Williams is the number 1 wide receiver on the Chargers in fantasy.
He's given you a minimum of 22 PPR points each of the first 3 games of the season. They are going to be a Justin Herbert-centric team.
Believe it or not.
They get a lot of targets.
Believe it or not.
Kind of got to believe it. As crazy as it sounds.
He's this year's. They're both amazing. I'll take Keenan Allen the same way I didn't say it out loud, but I wanted to tell you that I'm going to take Metcalf over Lockett rest of season last week, even though.
But now you'd probably like credit for it as well.
I did say it on Thursday's stream, so anybody heard that? Yes, I would like a little bit of credit now. Who knows what it's going to be? I'll still take Allen, but they are. I mean, Mike Williams is going to end up being the best draft pick in fantasy, I think, when it's all said and done. For the Chiefs, I think we
Unless
talked
he gets
about
hurt.
it. Yeah, well. Mecole Hardman, 54% rostered. That's he scored a touchdown today. Too high, too low, or just right? 54% rostered for Hardman.
Sounds about right.
All right. New Orleans 28, New England 13.
Believe it or not, there's just nobody in New England that you should be using in fantasy.
No.
Using on a regular basis in fantasy, I don't think I believe it.
Did you see Damian Harris today?
Oh, yeah, I saw Damian Harris today.
No.
Did you see Brandon Bolden today?
I think you're going to use Damian Harris in the right matchups.
Yes, but not like an every week guy. Because when I don't have their schedule open right now.
They play Tampa Bay this week, so you're probably not using any of them next week.
Yeah.
No, well, obviously James White would be in play. We'll see his injury.
Right. I was encouraged by Jacoby Myers' uptick in targets and catches, and I wonder if that's in direct correlation to James White being out.
It's funny you say that because last year James White's numbers were really much better the first 3 weeks of the season, and then Jacoby Myers became a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So they, there's might be correlation there. Mac Jones, 51 pass attempts for 270 yards. Yeesh.
Yeah.
Okay. Buffalo 43, Washington 21.
Oh man. Believe it or not, Taylor Heineke is going to be a streamable quarterback for most of the year.
No, don't believe it.
23 and 24 fantasy points, but doesn't seem like he's playing very well in these two starts. But he's putting up some numbers, I guess.
It's the Falcons next week.
Yeah, I'm not gonna believe it. I didn't believe it with Daniel Jones this week, and I don't believe it.
No,
he won't. McLaurin?
He won't be a top 15 guy. Am I worried about McLaurin? A little bit.
We kind of thought he might struggle here against the Bills. 4 catches, 62 yards on seven.
As good as he was last week, in this kind of game as his bad game against the Bills, seems like a number 2 wide receiver to me.
I think this is the second time in 3 games he's had 4 catches for 62 yards. So, yeah, it is.
The problem is that we're taking all these guys that we were hoping to be number 1 receivers, and now we're saying they're number 2 receivers. We're running out of number 1 receivers.
Well, Cooper Kupp's helping fill the void.
Sure,
he's going to be 3 of them.
I'd rather have Mike Williams than McLaurin. Is that crazy?
Yeah, no,
I have him ranked higher this week.
Yeah,
Mike Williams or Hopkins rest of season.
Oh man,
probably Hopkins.
Tough one. All right, and we talked a lot about the Bills earlier today. We talked about Devin Singletary and losers. We talked about Emmanuel Sanders and winners, and we talked about Stephon Diggs and buy or sell. Cole Beasley is also an option on the waiver wire, 62% rostered. Would you drop Jonnu Smith for Dawson Knox?
I'll drop Jonnu Smith for just about anybody.
I haven't figured out who the top streamer is this week, but that's who I will drop Jonnu Smith for.
That's who you would. Okay, gotcha. Las Vegas 31, Miami 28.
Believe it or not, Derek Carr is going to lead the NFL in passing yards.
I think he's got a shot.
He's not gonna do that.
He has 1,203 yards through 3 games. He's averaging 400 yards per game. He is on pace for 6,817 yards passing.
He's thrown for over 300 yards in 7 of his last 8 games with multiple touchdowns in all 7 of those games. And the 8th game where he didn't have over 300 yards and multiple touchdowns, he got hurt in the first half and had to leave the game.
He's been
my argument used to be that they can't run the football. They found a way to run the football late against Miami, and Peyton, the Beefcake Barber, had himself a game. But I don't know if they're going to be able to consistently do it. And so I think Derek Carr is going to have a lot of games where he's throwing, and I think he's got a shot, Heath.
Yes, Heath.
If you were in a league where, let's say, you've just been decimated by injuries, you drafted Christian McCaffrey in the first round of a 14-team league, and your running backs are really not very good, and you'd also drafted, I don't know, somebody like Elijah Moore,
as your
Talking about me.
round wide receiver. Would you drop Elijah Moore for Peyton Barber this week?
Oh, I would drop Elijah Moore for anyone, but yes, I would. Yes.
Does that become the Peyton Barber, Justin Jefferson?
Yes.
That's yeah.
Did I do that? Is this?
No.
I didn't do that.
No, but you might do it this week off the waiver wire.
I think Jacobs could be back this week, so I think
Right.
buyer beware on Peyton Barber. All right, guys, let's go. Yeah, I mean, Derek Carr is making a case for himself as a must-start guy. It's going back now. It's 10 games going back to last year. He's just been really, really freaking good. Okay, one more thing here. Buy or sell. Myles Gaskin is not a top 24 running back.
I mean, he is, but not.
He's toward the bottom.
Not in a good
All
way.
right. Would you rather have Gaskin or a Bills running back rest of season?
Gaskin.
I think I'd rather have Gaskin over Singletary and Moss.
How about?
But it's not really his fault. He's not getting the work, and they're giving Malcolm Brown valuable touches near the goal line. He had a big run. I'm just annoyed by it.
He was the goal line back, Malcolm Brown, and then the regulation there.
They put him in the. They had first and goal from the.
I know it was Wildcat. He got in there. 26-0.
No,
Denver
he didn't get in.
I know that's right.
It just set on fourth and goal that set up the 2-point conversion for overtime.
I know. I'm sorry. Would you rather have Javonte Williams or Myles Gaskin?
I've never been closer to saying Williams over Gaskin.
I'll say Williams
right now.
Would you rather have Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams?
I think I'd rather have Javonte with an eye toward the rest of the season.
Anything else from this game, Heath?
No.
The Denver game, Denver Jets?
Yeah. No.
Can we have an in-depth conversation on Corey Davis?
Cortland Sutton sucked. 5 catches, 37 yards.
Go add Corey Davis if anybody drops him.
I did.
Offer the worst team in your or worst player on your bench for Corey Davis. I do think he's a buy low. He's still getting a ton of target share, and he gets the Titans and the Falcons in his next 2 games.
Okay, Minnesota 30, Seattle 17.
Yeah, believe it or not, Tyler Lockett's only going to be a mid-range number 2 wide receiver rest of the year.
No, I don't believe that.
He'll be great. He'll be swell. No, he's awesome. Believe it or not, Tyler Conklin matters. 7 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown for the Vikings tight end, and he had an almost touchdown too.
Only on weeks where KJ Osborne doesn't.
Right. If this seemed like a matchup specific type thing, because the first 2 weeks of the season, Conklin played a lot but didn't get a lot of targets.
Okay, we'll see if the 49ers running backs can catch passes on the Seahawks. They really can't defend running backs in the passing game, but that's not exactly San Francisco's forte. 6 catches, 59 yards for Madison. Last game, Rams 34, Bucks 20. The Rams have never lost under Sean McVay when they've led at halftime. It is wild. 34-20 the score. Go ahead, Heath.
Closest, believe it or not, poll of the season so far. Believe it or not, Giovanni Bernard will be the best Tampa Bay running back in PPR rest of season.
This was what we were hoping for when we were telling everybody to take Gio in round 10 plus. I don't think I believe it.
I'm going to take Fournette. And it was 34-24, not 34-20. See results. Would cop out. All right, yeah, it was close, but now people, believe it or not is
winning. Just about 50% to 44.
Yeah. Who wants to start a Bucks running back? They're not going to be trailing like this in all out hurry up mode.
We've got like 7 teams that we would say that about now.
But this one in particular, who the hell wants to start a Bucks running back?
You would rather start a Bucks running back than a Jets running back?
I would rather start Tyson Williams than any Bucks running back.
You would rather start a Bucks running back than a Bills running back, wouldn't you?
No, I don't think so.
I'll talk to you next week. That's great.
No, I'm serious. I mean, how many? I don't think they have a single rushing touchdown this year, do they?
Tom Brady had a rushing touchdown today.
No, the Bucks running backs.
So did Godwin.
The Bucks running backs. I don't think they have a single rushing touchdown unless there was one in week 1.
Yeah, but they're going to.
I know they will, but dude, Tom Brady's going to throw 6 touchdowns at New England next week.
Right.
By the way, Jalen Ramsey did not shadow Mike Evans, and he had 8 catches for 106 yards, and he was started in 89% of leagues. Bravo. We talked about Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp. Damn, Stafford with a huge game, 37 points. Brady, 30 points. I don't think there's anything here. I mean, I think everything is the same.
Does Giovanni Bernard not have any carries this year?
0.
Yeah, it's 0.
0 carries. That's something.
All right. Good show, guys. Thank you. Great stuff. Thanks for hanging out. I know it was a long one. Appreciate it to all of you who are watching and listening. And we will talk to you Monday. We got the mid-afternoon statsy kind of fun show with me, Chris Towers, and Jacob Gibbs. You will enjoy it. We'll talk to you then. See ya.